Well, thanks, everybody. I like to remind myself and those that I'm chatting with that all of what we're talking about is the result of a global pandemic that we've all endured for a year. Arguably, we're in trauma and grief. And I do like to remember that, as Scott reminded us, the thousands and thousands of hours that people have volunteered their time with the goal of getting us back together as a community, getting us back into the building. And that's our priority. And as the COVID task force has found out that air quality is a priority, we also realize that tech has entered our lives. You know, just like the air quality would have been part of the BFF, so too would the tech upgrade that I'm about to propose or present to you. And that is based on the fact that our staff did an amazing job switching us over to virtual services somewhat overnight. So props to them, and a lot argue that there's no going back. It's an amazing benefit that we have where we can watch and participate in church from our homes. As you know, I would argue the years coming out of this pandemic, it may not be like switching the lights back on. We may be in for some curious times ahead. We might see the pandemic come back, knock on wood, let's hope that doesn't happen. But the fact is that the church, as they started with the BFF, has been on a path of bringing a good quality service to the fireplace room and then bringing it also to a virtual online. And we got kicked into high gear to bring it online. So why do we need to do that? We need to do that so we can continue to reach people in this convenient way. We're taking advantage of technology. As we slowly re-enter the church, a lot of people may choose to not come back. So we'll be able to still offer them the virtual online services. And a thing to keep in mind is what the staff is doing now is very different than what we're proposing, because we're proposing a significant amount of money to pay for some tech upgrades. And basically we're participating in a Zoom meeting, and we all sit there and Jones in the Zoom meeting, and often Vertus and Liza in different rooms, but it is a Zoom meeting. So what we're proposing is something very different, which in a sense turns the sanctuary into a production space. So could you go to the next slide? Or can I go to the next slide? So as we started to talk about this, and I say we are the tech team, and we are part of the Worship and Arts Committee. At the beginning of the year in the Worship and Arts Committee summer retreat, we said we need to up our tech team. Many of you remember Bill Payne sitting up in the front of the sanctuary for the last several years, ever since I've been here. He was the tech team. And he basically ran the slideshow and ran the projectors. And now we're proposing something very different. So what are our priorities? And from the get-go, we said we do not want to impact this space. We cannot have major renovations to the space, the physical space, and also the emotional space. We want, when you walk in to participate in a service, we want it to be just like it always was, as best we can. So to do that requires multiple cameras, and those cameras cannot be operated by a human, because to have camera operators it's just not an option. It would change things too much. And nowadays there's cameras that can get mounted on the wall and they can be controlled from a remote area. And so with that comes a little control area somewhere yet to be positioned that controls the remote cameras. And then it also switches the cameras so that you have a program. Some people say, great, we're doing video. We got to keep in mind that audio is arguably more important than video. You can watch a pretty bad looking video presentation and deal with it if the sound is good. If the sound's not good, you're not going to stick around for too long. And our commitment as the tech team is for the first year, we're going to operate this, but ultimately we need a much more vibrant tech team. And I looked at it as a real opportunity. And I do want to say on the meeting now is Beth Damon and Kenrick Kite and myself. Those are 3 of the 5 of the tech team. The other one is Bryce Douglas, and Paul Olson has been participating with us. So we hope to build that tech team moving into the future. And I think as we get into some of the potential, it's going to be fun, and hope particularly younger people. I think it's a really wonderful opportunity. Okay, so the next, I have about, I think 4 or 5 slides. So I started to tell you what we're looking at. The thing on your top right there, that white thing, that's the most important gadget. That's a remote controlled camera. Admittedly, it's top of the line camera. It shoots at what's called 4K. It's very high res. With the way technology is, technology becomes obsolete pretty quickly. This camera will last us a good long time. I think it's important now to spend the money on that camera. That's kind of the bread and butter of this video component. If you look at the middle picture there, that's what's called it's a remote control camera operator. It basically, see that little joystick? That controls, you can pan, tilt, and zoom those cameras. They're completely silent, so you won't hear them move, but the camera operator will redirect them. And then if you look at the bottom left, that's the switcher situation. So that other gadget says, okay, take this camera. While that camera is being projected to what's called the program, then the operator move another camera into position, and then he switches that. And so this is your typical 3-camera shoot, and it covers a lot of basically anything we want to do from an audio video perspective. The other things that have been on our to-do list with the tech upgrade is our projectors. So in the budget that we're proposing is new projectors, as well as a more functional hearing assist package and an audio upgrade. We're phasing these purchases. The audio upgrade means the actual audio system in the church. It's very limited right now. So if we had for musical guests, it's limited, and you have to mic these things up. As great as they sound in the room, if you don't mic them, you can't project that sound out to those watching virtually. So the next slide, please. And this is what I find really exciting is capacity. So what do we mean by capacity? Certainly the capacity to bring a really high quality service to those watching from home. That's our primary objective. But the second bullet there is pre-production. And you've noticed watching services throughout the year, a lot of things have been produced ahead of time. And that could be people singing, that we may not be able to sing together for a while. We'll see, maybe all of next year, but we can do it in smaller functional production strategies so that a few people could come in and do a pre-produced song. Eliza can do pre-produced music. Vertus can keep singing for us. So a lot of that pre-production, and that could be poetry, readings, wherever the imagination can go. The third bullet is I think also exciting, and that is, and Peter Toms might like this idea, but Peter has been suggesting to capture the stories of the pandemic, and regrettably we haven't activated that yet. But with a system like this, you could schedule somebody, come in, plug in some mics. The system, you'd need someone to operate the system for you, but you could record those types of stories. We could have podcasts. We could do anything that the mind could imagine in the digital arts, and that's where I'd like to get younger people involved to get them learning and creating. And then certainly, as far as increased revenue from this room then becomes serving our needs very well, but it's also serving others that want to do the same thing. More and more people are, of course, we take advantage of this room as a performance location, but now to live stream it. I think the face of entertainment is going to change. So someone could do a concert at the UCM and it could be broadcast there. So I think we will increase our rental capacity to have this digital technology. So I think the last slide talks about cost. And this is the cost we're at. The initial purchase we're proposing is for our cameras and the things that we've had on deck to buy, the new projectors and the hearing assist hardware. Then we're going to follow that with, and this may be done at the same time, depending if we approve this money, we'll go probably both purchases at the same time, to also include our new audio system, which is critical for this. And then we have to install this thing. And just so you know how we're proposing to do it is we will purchase this equipment. It's really critical, I would argue to the inch where these cameras get mounted. So we're going to wire them up and then bring in our crew and start going up ladders and identifying exactly where those cameras will be. We know roughly where we want to put them, but so we're going to wire it, mount those cameras, and then still have the wires not yet buried. Once we then use it, as we start to move into our phased re-entry of the church, we will neatly situate this in the back of the sanctuary. Where the final location is yet to be determined. And that's when I think we'll probably, we really need to seek the congregation and where do we put this thing? From my perspective, I've thought that up in the bell tower room is ideal, but the bell tower room has a priority, and that currently has a use. Beth came up with a nice idea above the elevator. We could put that there, where again, we don't necessarily want to put a hole in the wall. We could put this system arguably behind the organ in one of those rooms back there. It's a relatively small footprint. So our thought is, let's get the system up, let's get it functioning, let's bury the wires as best we can. But then that final item is, okay, now we need to do this formally. We need someone we're not going to bury the wires in the wall. We've talked to electricians about a molding that you can put in above the existing molding that runs these wires. The good thing about this technology is they're very small wires. It's called Cat 6, actually. If anyone knows Cat 5, it's the same size wires. So we need 5 or 6 of these running in both directions, and they're relatively easy to bury internal to the room. So we're not going to be busting into the wall. And then, so that brings the total to roughly $59,000. And that's as high as we will need. And that's what we're proposing.